You fire me for talking about unionizing. I'll spill all your dirty secrets. This is a bit of a long one. Please bear with me to the end. I used to work for a plasma collection center back from 2008 to 2010. Even though I was a certified phlebotomist, I was placed up in reception and I slowly worked my way up to senior receptionist and trainer. I was also training for quality control and was known for keeping detailed notes of issues that were in need of fixing, training which I would forward on to management. Some of the things I'd keep track of were violations of FDA and GHA German health authorities, since we were run by a German-Swiss company, as well as OSHA issues. Because I wasn't seeing anything being done, I eventually stopped reporting the issues to avoid being labeled a troublemaker and just kept time, date info, and if I could I got pictures with date stamps just to cover my own ass in case something bad went down. Fast forward to June of 2010 and I was talking with one of my coworkers about the proposed cuts to benefits and the high turnover rate at our center. They were complaining to me about being afraid to call in sick because others had been fired for it. And I mentioned that they were putting donors in danger by us being sick, since we weren't allowed to wear face masks unless we were in the back in the donor area, and even then it was the clear face shields to prevent getting hit if someone leaked on us. Without thinking about it, I talked about how unions protected against this sort of thing in other medical fields, and how that might be something we should consider to help protect us. The coworker got weirdly quiet. But I figured it was because I was talking about a subject most people don't like talking about. Nothing really happened until about August, when another coworker grabbed my ponytail while I was working with a donor and yanked down on it. Jerking my head back, I'd informed everyone I worked with to never touch my hair because it was a trauma trigger for me from being abused. And so this coworker knew I would wind up in panic mode from this. She'd seen it happen before when a donor touched my hair. So this was deliberate. I remember telling her to not do that again, or I would make her get away. She of course walked up and yanked my hair even harder. And I hit her. The supervisors went into damage control mode as I fled the area, still in a panic response. And one of them cornered me and demanded I write down what happened because I had assaulted someone on the property. I wrote my side as well as told them to check security footage, since the camera was aimed right at the booth I was working at and had clear view of the events. Turned out everyone else told an entirely different and creepily similar story than what I told. And the footage couldn't be found even though less than half an hour had passed. I was fired for assault less than an hour later and escorted off the premises after being given 5 minutes to clear out my locker and get my belongings. So on to the revenge, which was two-pronged. My partner was there on that day and saw what happened, and tried to offer to write up what he saw, but was denied. So the next time he went in, he wound up being screened by the coworker who yanked my hair, who didn't even get a write-up for assaulting me and asked her loudly enough that the whole reception area could hear. So how's those 50 shekels of silver, Judas? Was it worth it? Which left her in tears, and another person had to finish screening him. He wound up being banned for 6 months for his attitude. But he claims it was more than worth it. While this was going on, I had been reaching out to the various organizations and departments that oversaw plasma donation and collection. The FDA, OSHA, CDC, GHA, and the like. I informed them of the fact that we always cleaned prior to an inspection, but we didn't keep things that clean day to day, and suggested a surprise inspection should be in order. I also handed over copies of everything I'd collected and tried to report, but always got shut down. I learned a few months later that all of the management and several of the other techs and supervisors were all suddenly reassigned, and the FDA, GHA, and OSHA had all slammed fines on the center for violations dating back almost the whole time I worked there. TLDR, don't frick with the person who keeps meticulous notes and has nothing left to lose. ETA to answer a few questions. 1. This is a US-located center. The company was started in Switzerland, is reviewed by the German Health Authority, and was then bought out by an Australian company but runs centers in the US. The company is also very anti-union. A receptionist at a plasma center is way different than a receptionist at a typical office. We're responsible for donor intake. Donor screenings including minor blood collection, checking levels such as hematocrit and protein, and verifying donor eligibility on top of things such as keeping donor files up to date, cleaned up if they're too big, making a new file, quality control, and assisting in areas where needed such as the donor floor or processing. And that's on top of filing and answering phones when able. 3. I was up front with my bosses and coworkers about my PTSD and triggers due to past experience with trying to hide them and it turning out badly outside of work. 4. Yes, my partner's comment was more petty than anything else. And for those wondering the meaning behind it, he was saying she sold out someone she claimed was a friend for a reward of some sort. That's what happens when you try to screw over your employees while running a not-so-trustworthy business. I've read it before. And I'll repeat it, you can be an asshole or a crook. But don't try to be both. My heart skipped a beat when you mentioned the trauma and abuse. And someone literally using that to hurt you. I'm so glad you got back at them. However, I don't quite understand. Why did this particular coworker want to frick with you? How does it connect with the talk of unionizing? It sounds like the hair pulling was a coordinated attack to get op to fight back so they could fire her for assault. As firing for attempting to unionize is a huge no-no and will result in a lawsuit and sanctions. Nice. Makes me wish I was a better note keeper. Sorry about the abuse though. That's really messed up. Hope it's gotten better for you. I'm back in school and working freelance now. So I'm content. I spent 3 years in the plasma center business myself. The center management and quality management were in cahoots to follow the least amount of protocols possible for maximum donor output. It was ridiculously exhausting for the employees. And they would punish those who called them out. I will never work at one again. The extra cash from being a donor, however, is a nice perk. Can confirm. I worked at this center. Ended up calling out the HR rep in my exit survey. Name dropped our bosses on the sneaky shiz they do. And nothing came of it. If anyone reads this that works at a plasma center and you're considering leaving, just fucking do it. Those places mentally abuse the hell out of you. You'll thank yourself down the road for it. In the USA, when going for wrongful termination, the company would need to bring the video to defend themselves. In lack of that evidence, you'd have won because they would be hiding it for some reason, as was obvious here. You'd still have to prove it was deleted on purpose, which she could, but it'll take time and money. What size of fines could that be? Some OSHA violations go into the 6 digits by themselves. I think it topped out at 70k back in the time period of this story. So how's those 50 shekels of silver? Judas. Was it worth it? Beautiful. Brought tears to my eyes. That is something that one won't ever forget. Did you try reporting your assault to the police? While refusing to release the CCTV, and every employee making a quite opposite statement, it would have been very unlikely to go anywhere. Hair pulling is assault too. I would have filed charges against her. You were just defending yourself. And filed for wrongful termination. Even if both failed, forcing both them and her to court for a while would have been fun. Fun, but expensive. I was really confused for a second as to how you were collecting super hot conductive gas. I was too, until I saw phlebotomist, then I was like, frick, she's a vampire. It's funny because my husband works in the medical field and he writes down every single piece of blackmail he can get on people and puts them in a folder just in case they frick with him. I used to work for a German company at a location in the US. They absolutely hate unions. Work for BMW. They put a factory in the upstate of South Carolina just to avoid this. I now try and bring the word of the union after seeing what they have changed over the years. So the whole office banded against you after the incident. Makes it seem like there is a side we are not hearing. Possibly the other workers found OP's paper trail of unreported safety violations and didn't like that OP was literally risking their lives to have a power trip. Or maybe they didn't like the risk of working with someone who might assault them or their donors because they have poor impulse control and don't want to take responsibility for their behavior. Or maybe you're right, an OP is actually much worse than they admit to here. Is that 50 shekels of silver thing a reference to something? I don't quite understand it. It is reference to Judas for betraying Jesus. I'm not quite following. Were they put up to it by management? Or did all of the staff turn against you? Not sure how true it was. But the management informed me that my story had been the only one different. And the two I was shown looked almost like they copied off each other. By the way, if you would have been in a union, you would have got automatically a legal expenses insurance and been able to sue them. Don't count on it. The union would cover the other employees and do what they could to keep them around too. It's a good story. But being in the US, why wouldn't you have reported the assault to the police and sue the one that assaulted you and the company for protecting that person? Overall good writing but some plot holes. Police rarely give a damn about assaults. Suing is the avenue I suggest. But people usually don't. And even winning a lawsuit is emotionally taxing. Hey OP, would you have any interest in helping me report a big pharma co that inappropriately blacklisted me from their studies? I'm only offering $100. Contingent on some positive result. This whole work environment seems toxic. It was. What does this have to do about being fired for union talk? She got fired for retaliating against an assault. She shouldn't have been terminated in the first place, but the post title is extremely misleading. The company bid its time. Waited to cause a good opportunity after the fact and then use it to get rid of OP. Don't know where you are, but in America it's illegal to fire someone for trying to organize. That's why they set up the scheme. So you never explained why a coworker just yanked your hair. You think this entire event was set up because you mentioned unionizing one time? I have a feeling there's a huge backstory you're not telling us. This is written in a flighty way that glosses over quite a bit. I doubt the majority of this. Yeah, I did. Read it again. I'd come forward about my issues with my hair being touched due to past abuse because I felt it was best to be upfront about the issues to try to prevent what happened.